Being yourself is very easy, but very difficult at the same time. You see, it is easy because you literally just have to be yourself. You don't have to do anything else but be. But it is also very difficult because there's an infinite amount of forces that are trying to equalize you with your environment. Let me explain it with an analogy. Let's say you have a pot of boiling water. If you just let it be, then the water is going to cool, then the water is going to evaporate, then the pot, after a long time, will start to rust, then the rust is going to turn to dust, and then that dust is going to be carried away by the wind. And so you start with a pot of boiling water, but because you don't pay any more attention to it, it just turns into dust that is then carried away by the wind. And the same thing applies to ourselves. If we do not use ourself, then that self is going to wither away. In other words, we are going to become an NPC. We are going to become just like everyone else if we do not put in the work that is required to be someone. And so, now you may be asking, what are the forces that are making us more equal with our environments? Well, those are the following. I have listed the 4 most potent ones. I have listed social media, people, the media in general, and, most surprisingly, identity. Now, it's quite obvious how social media is trying to make you more like the masses. Because everyone spends so much time on social media, they more or less become all the same. Not only that, but social media stops you from developing yourself because it wastes so much time and mental energy. And now you might be saying, well, this doesn't affect me because I only watch successful people to think more like them. But this is actually cope, because when you consume from successful people, you start to think more like them. But thinking more like them may not be right for you. In other words, your version of success may be different than theirs. And so by trying to pursue their version of success, you may get an inferior life. This may sound a bit like this soy boy beta male kind of mindset where everyone has their own type of success. But it's actually true. Like, don't be a loser. But outside of that, the path to success is different. For instance, a lot of the people on social media have this very dopamine hard work kind of lifestyle where they do. They work 18 hours a day. They don't sleep, are on their phone all the time, and then they party to calm down from working so much. This is considered success. I do not consider it success. I consider success being free and being disciplined. That is, you don't work very much, but you are completely free because your discipline allows you to get a lot of done with little time, and also your discipline frees you from your vices. And so you're not on your phone all the time, working, scrolling, messaging, but you just work and then you live. This is, for instance, widely underrepresented on social media, but the people who have this high performer, high value male kind of life where they message, work, vastly overrepresented. And so even if you follow them and think more like them, what you may discover is that you actually like my way more, where you don't have this useless 18-hour days, but where you actually live and work and abstain from vice so that you can be free, right? And then you have people who are trying to make you more equal to your environment. This is actually kind of obvious. Like, your parents say bad boy, your parents say good boy. Then you grow up, you become a person, and then they still continue to say good boy, bad boy, and that's reinforcement. So you see, most of the time that's useful. Like if your parents were not to reinforce certain behaviors, then and punish others, then you'd of course become an animal. But beyond a certain point, continuing to listen to your parents will not make you better. It will actually make you worse, because you forget to live yourself and you forget to discover your own lessons, because you just keep implementing what your parents do. And you know, it's not just that your parents are trying to make you more equal to the environment, it's actually also your friends, your fake friends, your hot blonde. All of those people give reinforcements for certain behaviors and punish others. And if we were to add all of the behaviors, all of them, all of the behaviors that your parents reinforce and punish, that your hot blonde reinforces and punish, that your friends reinforce and punish, if we were to add all of them, we would get a life that is approximating that of a sponge. Like a sponge is on a rock in the ocean. It grows very, very slowly and does nothing. But as you might have guessed, living as a sponge is kind of cringe. Like, it's not very interesting, it's not very spiritual, it's not very emotional. You just are a sponge and you do nothing. But we don't want to be sponges. This is why, instead of blindly listening to all of the reinforcements that all the people give us all the time, it is much more useful to decide, is this reinforcement right? Is this reinforcement wrong? What is the proper way? Instead of what is the way that is reinforced. You see? Tiny difference, massive difference in the end. There's a tiny difference between what gets reinforced positively versus what is right to be reinforced positively. But in the end, the result is completely different. Either you become a person or you become a sponge. The choice, I guess, is yours. If you have no problem listening to all those reinforcements all the time, then of course, live as a sponge. I'm not here to judge you. Although I do judge you if you live like a sponge, because look, you could have become so many things and you chose such a life. But you know, who cares? And of course you have the media, which, just like your parents and the people around you, reinforces certain behaviors and punishes others. It gives you sort of this ideal that you should be and an ideal that you should avoid. So an anti-ideal. The problem, and this itself, by the way, is good, just like the reinforcements from your parents and so on. Because if everyone were to think for themselves, then we wouldn't be able to have a society, because no one could agree on anything, because everyone would have their own interpretation of the world. But it does get problematic when it goes too far. In other words, when the media starts to push bullshit like this woke kind of stuff, or those degenerate kind of stuff, like when the rap music portrays so much degeneracy, or when the media portrays endless wokeness. This is, of course, where it goes too far and where society is not unified by common sets of beliefs, but rather split, because some people continue to believe the media while some wake up and realize that it's all a scam. And so the media is a reinforcer, just like anything else, but most of the time it goes too far. And if your goal is to be unique and to have your own self-developed, then you must consume as little media as possible. But if, of course, you want to blend in with masses, by all means, consume as much media as you want. And then we, of course, have identity. This is perhaps the most surprising, because a lot of people confuse being with identity. But identity is actually a scam when you think about it, because identity means a collection of beliefs and behaviors that you like and therefore do. So for instance, you might have this, there are multiple identities like the gym identity, the city girl identity, the soy boy identity, the monk identity, the lawyer, doctor, engineer identity, and there are so many identities. Some people choose one, some people choose two, some people choose three. But the thing is, when you have identity, you don't actually become unique. You don't actually develop yourself. Rather, you are using this identity which someone else has come up with to then mold yourself. And this actually brings you away from yourself. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have this gym identity. When you have gym identity and you see stairs, your intuition is that stairs are cardio and cardio kills gains. Therefore, I should not go these stairs but take the elevator. Someone who doesn't have the gym identity will instead realize that going on stairs and cardio is good because being exhausted all the time from doing basically anything is kind of a bad way to live. And so, in this sense, having the identity confines you. But not having the identity makes you free from all these kinds of judgments and superstitions. And all of a sudden, just because you care about muscles, you can't do cardio. This is why I reject identity. It makes yourself mistaken for a concept. It makes yourself equal to a concept. But if yourself is equal to a concept, then you live as a concept and not as yourself. I hope that kind of makes sense. And now, what do we do about it? What do we do about it? Well, it's simple. We eliminate the social media. We stop listening to the influencers. We stop consuming so much media all the time. We stop allowing ourselves to be reinforced by people all the time. And we stop being reinforced by identity all the time. That means we just live. But here is where it gets a bit interesting. You see, I started this video with the example of the pot of water, of boiling water, that cools, then evaporates, then the pot rusts, and then it turns into dust, and then the dust is blown away. The problem is, most people have made so little use of their self that it has completely withered away. In other words, most people, even if they were to eliminate all those different influences, would still have no real self. So even if a sponge were to stop listening to social media, it would still remain a sponge until it evolves and stuff like that into a proper animal. And so what I mean by this is this. A lot of people don't know what they want to do when they grow up. So they're 18 years old, completely uncertain what they should do. The first question, of course, becomes, what do you like to do? Most people, when they're 18 years old, can't answer that question. Simply because they spent all their childhood scrolling, consuming, thinking through their parents, thinking through media, thinking through their friends, that they've never had a single independent thought. And this is why they don't even know what they like and what they want to do. Because they just spent all their lives being reinforced by others, living through others, thinking through others. And so actually, the first way to develop a self is to understand that you may not have a self because it never has been used, or because it atrophied from not using it ever. So it means accept that you may not have a self, that you may be in fact exactly like your environment, and then eliminate the environment. Like, stop listening to people all the time, stop consuming so much media, stop identifying, just live. And start doing. You see, if you do not have stories to tell, ideas to discuss, or have never done anything scary, interesting, or hard, you will not develop a self. The self is developed through living a unique life. And you do this by living and by doing unique things. And most of the unique things that you could do are scary and difficult. And so, do the scary, difficult things. Accept that you may not have a self because you've not done those things. And cut down the external influences that you have. This is how you find yourself. This is how you get closer to yourself and further away from the forces that are trying to normalize you with your environment. And so, my goal is to inspire 10,000 good decisions. If it's you're up to, subscribe and we'll see you in the next one.